Hello, everyone, and welcome to Increasing the Security of Sensitive Data by Mitigating Insider Threats. My name is Nicole Landau. I'm a product manager at BetterCloud. I've been with BetterCloud for almost 2 years now and have focused on everything from workflows to Google Shared Drives. When we're not fully remote, I work out of our Atlanta office, and I love working with our customers to unpack how to best equip your teams to thrive in the world of SaaS ops. I'm super excited to dive into this topic with you all today. So without further ado, let's get started. In this session, we're going to talk about where to start in gaining visibility into insider threats, how to decide what course of remediation is right for your organization, how to use BetterCloud tools to reduce risk of insider threats. For those of you who attended the keynote, you know that we've aligned our product strategy to address key trends. That investment has been focused around 3 core themes: increased integration support for your most commonly used apps, streamlined management through automation, and enhanced visibility and control over your SaaS environment. That last piece, visibility and control, is what we're going to focus on in this session. Visibility is all about having a window into your SaaS environment, having a place to go where you can see an overview of your environment, as well as dive deeper into data to answer important questions. Control is applying rules and policies to your SaaS environment so that processes, procedures, and repercussions, when those rules are broken, are clear to all of your end users. Securing sensitive data by mitigating insider threats is just one use case that shows the criticality of obtaining and maintaining greater visibility and control over your SaaS environment. Let's start with why this matters to IT and what problem we're trying to solve here. The relationship between IT and its stakeholders, whether those stakeholders be HR, the legal team, security team, or the end user, is all about trust. The HR team is trusting that IT is managing access to sensitive databases so as not to let employee or account data fall into the wrong hands. The legal team is relying on IT to ensure company IP is safe and data privacy agreements are upheld to protect hard-won customer relationships as well as hard-earned revenue. The security team is trusting that IT is keeping the org aligned to industry best practices and compliant with regulations such as HIPAA, CCPA, or ISO 700 to protect customer data, keep risk low, and prevent costly exposure events. End users are trusting IT to keep their data safe, while also trusting that IT is granting them access to all of the tools and data that they might need in order to be successful in their roles. IT is, of course, trusting all of those parties to follow the rules and procedures put in place to help keep all of that sensitive data safe. Insider threats are breaks in that trust, whether they're intentional or not. IT misses a critical offboarding step, and an end user maintains access to download material from a GitHub repository long after being let go. An end user gains access to a database containing customer PII and uploads a file to their drive where it is unknowingly shared with an external contractor. The CFO wants to review some documents about a top secret merger over the weekend and shares the entire project folder with his personal email. Trust is really, really challenging. Accidents happen, and when the information at risk is company IP, customer PII, or confidential information, the stakes are just too high to rely on trust alone. Securing sensitive data by mitigating those insider threats is a critical function of SaaS ops, and that requires knowing what you're up against as well as having the right tools for combat. So where do you start? The first step in securing sensitive data is gaining visibility into your SaaS environment by understanding where your weak spots are. What sensitive data or valuable IP does your organization have? Who is your data shared with? What valid reasons exist for data being shared outside of your organization? What malicious users or risky behaviors are putting your data at risk? Essentially, what data is exposed and why? BetterCloud provides tools to answer those key questions. Let's talk through some examples. First up is Joe. Joe works in IT for a startup that's just starting to really gain momentum. Now that they've moved out of the basement and into the real world, they're trying to assess risk and establish company-wide security policies. He's working closely with the security and legal teams to figure out where to begin by finding out what their data loss prevention weak spots might be. They're most concerned with IP being shared externally. So Joe sets out to investigate how many files or folders are shared publicly with a link. Using BetterCloud, Joe can try different file filters to dynamically sift through his data to uncover problem areas. First, he navigates to the files grid. Then, he adds a new filter focused on file permissions and applies it to the grid. Joe sees there are 59 results and browses the grid to get a better understanding of the types and locations of the files being shared to assess risk. He can choose to click into each file to get more details. He can add additional columns to get a more tailored or detailed overview, or he can keep playing with various filters to see where the biggest problem behavior lies in his user base. Next is Meg. Meg works in security for a mid-sized consumer products company. They're working with a contractor for the first time to help build out some additional content for a new website that they're building. And Meg is worried, like I'm sure most of us are, that people haven't been careful enough about what data is stored where. Meg wants to make sure no customer PII is present in the marketing collateral folder because those documents are about to be shared with a contractor. Meg can use a targeted content scan to deep dive on especially sensitive folders or groups of documents. She does this by navigating to the files grid, selecting the folders or files she wants to search, and selecting the data types she wants to scan for. Meg sets up a targeted content scan to see what PII is stored in that marketing collateral folder. Based on the results, she sees that a few documents might need securing before the folder is shared. Up next is Shannon. Shannon works for a large multinational company that sells products direct to consumer. She works closely with the security team because they have to be very careful to protect customer payment information. Shannon wants to know what sensitive data is exposed. Her biggest concern is which externally shared files might have credit card numbers in them. Shannon can set up a file audit to get a broad view of her exposure. She does this by initiating a file scan, focusing on all files that are shared externally across her various SaaS applications, and selecting credit card data as the info type to scan for. When the audit completes, Shannon finds that 8 files shared externally have credit card data across Box, Google, and Microsoft. Joe, Meg, and Shannon just used key BetterCloud tools to uncover data exposure. Joe used file filters to dynamically sift through his data to uncover 59 files shared publicly with a link. Meg used a targeted content scan to deep dive on an especially sensitive folder and prevented a data leak before it happened. And Shannon used a file audit to get a broad view of potential credit card exposure and found 8 documents where credit card data could be exposed. So what do they do about it, right? Each of our personas has used a visibility tool to uncover some sensitive data at risk. Now what? How can they regain and maintain control of their sensitive data? The first step is to decide what your security posture is. What are the rules of engagement for your organization and how strict are they? Not all organizations follow the same rules here, so it's important to first decide where you fall on the spectrum to help define how you might respond to security incidents. On one end of the spectrum, you have companies that prioritize collaboration and would rather accept the risk of exposure than inhibit productivity because an employee can't access a folder for a project. These companies favor open access and have complete trust that their users will behave responsibly. On the other end of the spectrum are companies that prefer to mitigate all risk and restrict suspicious activity by taking action on behalf of the user immediately and without warning or input. The middle ground allows what we call moderated collaboration. These companies focus on educating end users on how to behave, monitoring for missteps, and guiding end users on how to right their wrongs. To establish where your organization falls on the spectrum, you might ask yourself, how vulnerable is your data to data leak? What kinds of sensitive data do you store? Do you allow any external sharing? And are there any individuals, groups, or documents exempt from those rules that you set? Maybe an executive team, marketing team, or HR team follows a separate set of sharing rules, either permanently based on their role or temporarily to help facilitate an audit. Once you've decided where you fall on this spectrum, you can start to set up the data visibility and control tools that best align to your organization's unique security posture. Let's go back to our personas and walk through some more examples. First up is our friend from before, Joe. Joe's company falls in the segment of open access and complete user trust. He doesn't want to tell end users what to do, but he needs to know which files are shared externally in order to keep tabs on suspicious behavior. Joe can create a saved filter to keep tabs on certain data exposure concerns. Joe navigates to the files grid and once again adds a new filter for anything shared externally with a link. This time, he saves this filter so that he can quickly and easily check back in on which users are sharing documents outside of the org. He can choose to access this from the filters list, where it appears with all of the other presets as well as the create new option, or he can set this as his default view so that whenever he navigates to the files grid, he can check on this statistic. Over time, he notices that a certain user seems to be a repeat offender and reaches out to better understand if that insider threat is intentional or not. Meg's company falls into the segment of moderating collaboration and educating on risky behavior. She wants to stay on top of inappropriate document sharing and educate when end user missteps occur. Now that she knows that the marketing folder is in fact at risk, she wants to navigate to the alerts grid to set up a new alert. She wants to be immediately notified via email each time a violation occurs so that she can evaluate what steps to take. She selects all of the pieces of PII applicable to her organization and publishes this new alert. Within a few weeks, she has had quite a few documents trigger this alert. She gets an email each time the alert is triggered so she can stay on top of the violations as they occur. Periodically, she likes to take stock of all of the violations, so she heads to the triggered alerts grid to view them all in one place. From there, she can decide to remove external file collaborators, she can move the document to another location, or she can email an especially share-happy owner on a case-by-case basis. Shannon's company falls in the segment of mitigate all risk and restrict suspicious activity. She wants to make sure that any document shared externally that contains a credit card is unshared immediately. So Shannon sets up an automated workflow so that whenever a file containing credit card information is shared externally, all external collaborators are promptly removed. She also adds a step to let the file owner and the security team know what has happened in the hopes of educating her end users and keeping tabs on repeat offenders along the way. This type of action on behalf of the user, paired with informing the user, can be very effective. BetterCloud actually runs a similar policy internally, which I learned the hard way. I had a document that contained some sensitive content and it was accessible to anybody with the link. Not only did the BetterCloud SaaS Ops team promptly remove that sharing link with a workflow, they also sent me an email and a Slack message to let me know what had happened and why. I can assure you that I am much more careful now about what sharing settings I choose to put on my documents. Joe, Meg, and Shannon just used BetterCloud tools to secure the sensitive data exposure risk they uncovered earlier. Joe used saved filters to keep tabs on his exposure concerns. Meg used an alert to proactively monitor and review what sensitive content is stored in shared folders. And Shannon used an automated workflow to proactively monitor and manage sensitive content inappropriately shared externally. They have each managed to gain visibility and control over some break in the circle of trust, some mistake that puts company or customer data at risk. But what about when the break in trust is not a mistake? We started this session talking about the importance of mitigating insider threats. And we've talked a lot about unintentional or seemingly accidental insider threats. What we haven't talked about are intentional insider threats, malicious end users that, for whatever reason, feel so inclined to put your organization's data at risk. What behaviors can you be watching for? And what can you do when you see them to maintain visibility and control over malicious insider threats? Meet John. John is an end user at an up-and-coming technology company. He likes his job okay, but he's what we might call an opportunist. He's always on the prowl to find some competitive edge. He's recently had some interesting conversations with somebody at a rival company and thinks he might score a pretty sweet job offer if he can collect some IP or account data for them. What can the SaaS Ops team do to maintain visibility and control over this malicious insider threat? They might use an email forwarding alert to proactively monitor and review potential IP leaks by receiving a notification anytime a user sets up a new email forwarding rule, whether that be to their personal Gmail account or directly to their competitor, Acme Corp. Or they might use what we call windowed alerts. This enables you to set a threshold for how much of a certain activity is acceptable before it becomes suspicious by saying how many over how long. For example, maybe you don't care about a user downloading one document over the course of a day, but you might want to know if somebody on your watch list, like John, downloads hundreds of documents over the course of an hour, as this could be a sign they're hoarding documents before leaving. In any of these cases, the goal is visibility and control. Workflows to enforce company policies give SaaS Ops admins peace of mind that swift action is being taken to mitigate risks and secure sensitive data. In the case of email forwarding against company policy, the workflow could alert the security team as well as the end user's manager to the transgression and suspend the user's account across all of your SaaS applications to prevent further exposure until malintent is confirmed or denied. Detecting and mitigating insider threats can be tricky business, but using BetterCloud tools, you can keep tabs on important assets, suspicious users, and suspicious user behavior, and take action to secure your organization. With email forwarding alerts to proactively monitor and review potential IP leaks, windowed alerts to gain visibility into suspicious activity, and workflows to take decisive action and enforce company policies. These SaaS Ops teams can contain malicious insider threats from users like John using these tools. Joe, Meg, Shannon, and John serve as great case studies for what's happening in our very real SaaS environments. BetterCloud helps customers apply those same tools and methods we discussed to mitigate insider threats. In the last 12 months alone, Admins like Joe have managed over 724 million files in our files grid. Admins like Meg have reviewed and taken action on over 42,000 files on case-by-case basis. And admins like Shannon have reduced duration of exposure with the help of 39,000 workflows automatically remediating file exposure. Securing sensitive data by mitigating insider threats is all about gaining visibility into what is at risk of exposure and taking steps to regain control of sensitive data. We're here to help balance trusting your users and taking decisive action to secure sensitive data so that you can get better sleep and spend more time focusing on other critical SaaSOps responsibilities. Thank you so much for joining me today to discuss securing sensitive data by mitigating insider threats. Go check out our next session, a better workshop on mastering increased control over file security, where you can see more applications and in-depth instruction on how to use these tools. Have a great rest of your day.